Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. Daniel Thorne stared at the half-melted candles on his chocolate birthday cake, wondering why 18 felt so disappointingly ordinary. The small apartment kitchen, with its flickering fluorescent light and peeling wallpaper, seemed to mock his childhood dreams of grand adventures. Make a wish, Danny. His mother's enthusiasm barely masked her exhaustion after a double shift at the hospital. He closed his eyes, more out of habit than hope. The familiar sensation washed over him, emotions and desires from the few party guests radiating like colors in his mind. His mother's pride tinged with worry, his best friend Mike's slight jealousy of the new watch on Daniel's wrist, the crushing weight of being different, of having to hide his ability to read people like open books. The doorbell rang. Expecting someone else? His mother frowned. No, Daniel's words died in his throat as the door swung open. 3 figures stood in the hallway, their appearances so startlingly alien that Mike dropped his paper plate. The tallest had deep blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the harsh lighting, while his companion sported metallic scales and crystalline growths that couldn't possibly be natural. Their formal attire looked like something out of a sci-fi movie, all sharp angles and flowing fabrics that defied Earth fashion. Daniel Thorne, the blue-skinned one spoke, his voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. I am Ambassador Vix of the Galactic Imperium. May we enter? Daniel's readerability hit him like a tidal wave. Determination, urgency, and beneath it all, a hint of fear from these impossible visitors. His mother's shock radiated beside him, but he managed to nod. The aliens glided into their cramped living room, making it feel suddenly small and shabby. Ambassador Vix produced a holographic document that hung in the air, glowing with alien script. 18 Earth years ago, your grandfather Jonathan Thorne saved Emperor Razix's life during First Contact. In gratitude, the Emperor signed a binding succession pact. The ambassador's eyes fixed on Daniel. With the Emperor's recent passing and no direct heir, you are now legally entitled to the imperial throne and the hand of Queen Illyra in marriage. Mike choked on his cake. Daniel's mother grabbed the kitchen counter for support, but Daniel could only focus on the absolute truth he read in the ambassador's aura. This was real. This is absurd, his mother finally managed. Danny's just a boy, he can't— The pact is ironclad, one of the scaled aliens interjected. The Queen awaits aboard our ship in orbit. We must depart immediately. Daniel's mind raced. His grandfather had disappeared when Daniel was an infant, leaving only cryptic letters about a greater destiny that everyone had dismissed as the ramblings of a sick man. Now, I need a moment, he said, surprising himself with how steady his voice sounded. The aliens' auras pulsed with impatience, but they nodded. In his tiny bedroom, Daniel quickly packed a bag while his mother hovered in the doorway. Danny, you can't seriously be considering this. He turned to her, reading the complex swirl of emotions, fear, pride, love, loss. Mom, remember all those times I just knew things about people? The lucky guesses that weren't really guesses? Her eyes widened. You mean? Grandpa's letters mentioned the reader bloodline. I think this is what I was born for. He hugged her tightly, feeling her reluctant acceptance. The ship was unlike anything human imagination had conceived. Daniel stood in a chamber of living crystal and light, trying not to gape as they approached a figure who could only be Queen Illyra. She was breathtaking, tall and regal, with blue skin several shades darker than the ambassador's. Her form-fitting dress seemed woven from starlight itself, emphasizing curves that made Daniel's mouth go dry. But it was the hurricane of emotions radiating from her that truly captured his attention. Anger, resentment, pride, and underneath it all, a deep loneliness that called to something in his soul. So this is the heir. Her voice could have frozen hydrogen. A child from a primitive world, barely out of adolescence. Daniel straightened his spine, letting his reader ability fully open to her. Every nuance of her disdain, every layer of her carefully constructed walls became clear to him. Instead of cowering, he smiled, not the nervous grin she clearly expected, but a knowing look that made her perfectly sculpted eyebrows twitch. "Your Majesty." He executed a bow that was neither too deep nor too shallow. "I look forward to proving that appearances can be deceiving." She didn't quite scowl, but her aura flared with irritation at his composure. "We shall see. The court will eat you alive, little heir." "Then, it's fortunate I've always had a healthy appetite." He met her gaze steadily and for just a moment felt a flicker of something besides contempt in her emotional landscape. The journey to the Imperial Palace was a crash course in galactic politics. Daniel absorbed everything the ambassador told him about the major houses, recent conflicts, and court protocols. But more importantly, he read the subtle dynamics between his escorts, the rivalries, the hidden agendas, the personal dramas that no briefing could capture. When they arrived, the palace took his breath away. It sprawled across an artificial ring world, its spires seeming to touch the star-studded void above. As they walked through halls of impossibly beautiful architecture, Daniel noted how the courtiers stopped to stare and whisper. Their emotions painted a canvas of curiosity, disdain, calculation, and in some cases, particularly from several noble ladies, intense interest. Queen Alara swept ahead of their group, her grace making the motion look effortless. "Your quarters have been prepared," she said without looking back. "Try not to embarrass yourself at tomorrow's formal presentation." Daniel watched her go, already forming plans. She expected him to fail, to prove himself the primitive child she believed him to be. Instead, he would show them all, exactly why his grandfather had chosen him for this. He smiled to himself, feeling the complex web of relationships and desires all around him. The game was just beginning. Daniel's quarters made his entire apartment back home look like a closet. As servants, actual alien servants, unpacked his meager belongings, he stood at a viewport that showcased the ring world's curve stretching into infinity. A soft chime announced a visitor. A young woman entered, her blue skin several shades lighter than Alara's, wearing what appeared to be official court dress. "Lord Thorn," she curtsied gracefully, "I am Lady Nira, assigned to assist your transition to court life." Her emotional landscape was fascinating. Genuine curiosity mixed with carefully controlled attraction and professional determination. Daniel gave her his full attention, noting how she straightened slightly under his gaze. "Please call me Daniel," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "I have a feeling I'll need all the friends I can get here." "That's unusually direct for court," she said, but her aura brightened with approval. "Though perhaps Earth customs are different." "Very." He leaned forward slightly. "For instance, on Earth, when someone wants to assess a potential threat while also considering their personal interests, they usually try to be more subtle about it." Nira's eyes widened, a faint purple blush coloring her cheeks. That's not." "Don't worry," he smiled. "I appreciate honesty, even unintended honesty. Shall we discuss what I need to know for tomorrow's presentation?" Over the next hour, Nira proved to be a wealth of information, not just about protocols, but about the personalities he would encounter. Daniel paid special attention when she discussed Queen Alara. "The Queen has ruled effectively as regent since Emperor Razix began his decline 3 years ago," Nira explained. "Many believe she should continue ruling alone, marriage requirement or not." "And what do you believe?" Daniel asked. though he could read her answer before she spoke. "I believe." She chose her words carefully, but her emotions were clear. That change isn't always unwelcome. Fresh perspectives can be valuable. Their eyes met, and Daniel allowed himself to project just enough warmth to make her blush deepen. Building allies would be crucial, and Lady Nyra's position could prove useful. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of preparations. Daniel memorized names, practiced ceremonial gestures, and was fitted for court attire that felt impossibly light yet radiated subtle power. That night, standing alone in his new quarters, he finally let himself feel the full weight of everything. His reader ability had always set him apart on Earth, made him different. Here, in this place of ancient powers and cosmic intrigue, it might just make him emperor. A message flashed on his room's holographic interface, the schedule for tomorrow's presentation ceremony. As he read it, another message appeared, this one anonymous. The boy king should watch his step. Not everyone welcomes earth-born upstarts. Daniel smiled. Let them plot. Every scheme, every emotion, every hidden desire was a thread he could read and weave into his own design. They thought him a naive child. He would show them what a reader could do. He looked out at the star field beyond his window, thinking of Queen Alera's barely concealed contempt. She was the key to everything, proud, powerful, and far more vulnerable than she knew. The court might be a maze of deadly intrigue, but Daniel had always been good at reading between the lines. The morning of the presentation arrived with controlled chaos. Daniel adjusted his formal attire, a masterpiece of crystalline threads and dark material that shifted colors like oil on water. As he prepared, his reader ability picked up approaching emotions, curiosity mixed with unmistakable desire. Lady Mira, daughter of House Vexian, sauntered into his chambers without announcement. Her silver-blue skin seemed to glow, her court dress leaving little to imagination. "I thought our new heir might appreciate a personal welcome," she purred, moving closer than protocol would allow. Her emotional signature blazed with intention. Daniel smiled, reading every layer of her approach. Ambition, attraction, and calculation all twined together. How thoughtful, though I suspect Queen Alera wouldn't approve of such informal greetings. "The Queen doesn't control everything," Mira traced a finger along his collar, despite what she believes. Before Daniel could respond, Lady Nyra entered, stopping short at the scene. Her aura flashed with jealousy before she composed herself. "Lord Thorn, the ceremony begins in 20 minutes. "Thank you, Nyra." He stepped smoothly away from Mira, noting how both women's emotions shifted at his subtle show of preference for formality. "Shall we proceed?" The great hall of the imperial palace defied description. Thousands of nobles from across the galaxy filled the vast space, their varied forms and colors creating a living tapestry. Daniel felt their mixed emotions wash over him: curiosity, disdain, interest, calculation. Queen Alera sat on the crystal throne, her beauty somehow even more striking in full imperial regalia. Her emotional landscape was carefully controlled, but Daniel caught flickers of annoyance as she noticed several young noblewomen eyeing him with obvious interest. The ceremony proceeded according to ancient protocol, until Daniel was required to kneel before the throne. He could feel Alera's satisfaction at seeing him in this position, along with various observers' reactions. Some courtiers practically radiated their hopes that he would make a mistake. Instead, he executed each ritual perfectly, adding subtle flourishes that demonstrated both respect for tradition and confidence in his own power. When he rose and turned to address the court, he projected an aura of natural authority that made even the skeptics pause. "My honored subjects," he began, his voice carrying easily through the vast space, I stand before you not just as heir to the throne, but as a bridge between worlds." His speech, carefully crafted to honor tradition while promising positive change, drew surprising approval. He could read genuine interest replacing dismissal in many minds, particularly among younger courtiers. Later, at the celebration feast, Daniel navigated a delicate dance of social interactions. Lady Kira of House Zenthar practically draped herself across him during a discussion of trade policies, while Princess Astra of the Nebula Kingdoms made her interest known through increasingly suggestive metaphors about joining their houses. Through it all, he maintained perfect composure, neither encouraging nor completely rejecting their advances. His reader ability let him play each interaction precisely, showing enough interest to gain allies but never enough to make promises. He caught Queen Alara watching these exchanges, her emotions becoming increasingly complex. Annoyance, yes, but also curiosity. She clearly hadn't expected him to handle the court's sexual politics with such sophistication. The evening's real challenge came during trade negotiations between houses Vexian and Zenthar. What started as a minor dispute over shipping routes quickly escalated into barely veiled threats of economic warfare. Daniel, seeing the deeper emotional currents at play, stepped in with a solution that gave both houses what they really wanted while appearing to favor neither. The shocked approval from the assembled nobles was genuine, but it was Alira's brief flash of reluctant admiration that pleased him most. As the celebration wound down, he retired to his chambers, well aware of at least 3 different noble ladies coincidentally learning the route there. Their disappointment when he firmly closed his doors was palpable. Alone finally, Daniel smiled to himself. Day 1, and already the court's dynamics were shifting. Let them think they were seducing him. Every flirtation, every secret desire they revealed was another thread in the web he was weaving. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, he had made his first move. And somewhere in the palace, a queen was going to bed with her certainty slightly less certain than before. Daniel stretched languidly in the morning light streaming through his chamber's crystal windows. His bed's silk sheets whispered against bare skin as Lady Mira stirred beside him, her silver-blue form barely covered. The door slid open without warning. Queen Alara swept in, datapad in hand, then froze. Her eyes traveled from Daniel's unabashed form to Mira's sleeping figure and back. Her emotional landscape exploded with competing feelings: jealousy, anger, and something deeper that she quickly suppressed. "Your Majesty," Daniel said calmly, making no move to cover himself. "To what do I owe this honor?" "The trade summit," she replied, voice glacial but eyes lingering, "which you'd remember if you weren't so occupied. In 1 hour, Grand Hall, House Zenthar's new tariffs on quantum crystals." He smiled. "I'm never too occupied to serve the Empire, my queen." Her jaw tightened at his easy confidence. Without another word, she turned and left, her departure as abrupt as her arrival. Mira stirred. "Was that—" "Go back to sleep," Daniel said softly, already processing the complex emotions he'd read from Alara. Her carefully maintained walls were starting to crack. The next week saw Daniel methodically expanding his influence. Every courtier's desire, every hidden agenda revealed itself to his reader ability. He turned rivals into allies through calculated kindness and genuine assistance, while keeping potential enemies off balance with his uncanny insights into their motivations. Ladies of the court proved especially valuable allies. Lady Nyra's network of informants merged seamlessly with Princess Astra's trade connections. Even Lady Kira, whose nightly visits had become common knowledge, provided crucial intelligence about her house's military capabilities. Daniel noted with satisfaction how Alara watched his maneuvering. She'd taken to observing his diplomatic sessions from hidden alcoves, her emotions increasingly conflicted as she witnessed his skillful handling of court politics. During one particularly heated negotiation, Daniel diffused a centuries-old blood feud between houses with a solution so elegant that even the most hardened cynics applauded. He caught Illyra's gaze across the chamber, reading a flash of genuine admiration before her masks slammed back into place. That evening he found her alone in the palace gardens. "Impressive performance today," she said, not turning to face him, "though I wonder how many of your intimate allies contributed to that solution." "Jealous, my queen?" He moved closer, testing the boundaries. She spun to face him, eyes flashing. "Don't flatter yourself. Your dalliances with court women are beneath my notice." But her emotional signature told a different story. Desire warred with pride, attraction with resentment. Daniel stepped closer still, close enough to catch the subtle scent of her perfume. "Then why do you watch me so carefully?" His voice dropped lower. "Why track my movements, my meetings, my visitors?" "I monitor all potential threats," she snapped, but didn't step back. "Is that what I am to you? A threat?" He reached out slowly, giving her time to withdraw, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Her skin was cool to the touch, but her emotional aura blazed. For a moment, the air between them crackled with possibility. Then she pulled away, composure restored. "Don't mistake political necessity for personal interest, little heir." But as she strode away, Daniel smiled. Her walls were crumbling faster than she knew. The annual Star Ball provided perfect theater for the court's shifting dynamics. Daniel danced with calculated precision, each partner chosen for maximum political impact. Lady Mira, Princess Astra, even the Andromedian ambassador's daughter, each whirled in his arms while whispering crucial secrets. Illyra watched from her throne, her legendary composure slipping with each dance. When Daniel finally approached her, protocol demanded she accept his invitation. The music shifted to an ancient imperial waltz. Daniel drew her close, closer than strictly necessary, and felt her breath catch. "You're playing a dangerous game," she murmured as they moved across the floor. "I'm not playing, my queen." His hand at her waist drew small circles that made her emotional signature spike with want. "I never play with things that matter." She pulled back enough to study his face. "You actually mean that?" "I always mean what I say to you." He let her feel the truth of it, dropping his own careful shields enough to let her sense his genuine attraction, his respect, his... She broke away suddenly, fleeing the ballroom. But Daniel had felt her response, the moment her own shields had wavered. Later that night, his chamber door slid open again, but this time it wasn't one of his usual visitors. Illyra stood in the doorway, pride warring with desire. "This changes nothing," she declared. Daniel smiled, holding out his hand. "Everything has already changed." She stepped inside and the door whispered shut behind her. The morning sun found them entwined in Daniel's bed, Illyra's blue skin glowing in the dawn light. She stirred, tension immediately returning to her shoulders. "Having regrets, my queen?" Daniel traced a pattern on her back, reading the complex swirl of her emotions. This was... She sat up, sheets falling away. A momentary lapse in judgment. Was it? He propped himself up on one elbow. Or was it finally accepting what we both know is inevitable? Her eyes flashed. "Nothing about you is inevitable, Earthborn." But she didn't resist when he pulled her back down for another kiss. The court noticed the shift immediately. Rumors spread about the Queen's pre-dawn exit from the heir's chambers. Daniel's other admirers withdrew slightly, reading the changing political winds. Lady Nira gave him a knowing smile during their morning briefing. Yet Illyra maintained her public distance, even as her nightly visits became more frequent. During day court, she'd debate his proposals with cutting precision, only to surrender to passion in his chambers hours later. "You're impossible," she breathed one night, sprawled across his chest. "How do you always know exactly what I need?" He finished, capturing her lips again. "Perhaps I just pay attention." But they both knew it was more than that. His reader ability let him anticipate her every desire, physical and emotional. More than that, it let him understand the deep loneliness behind her icy facade. The political landscape shifted with their relationship. Houses that had opposed Daniel suddenly found their proposals receiving royal consideration. Those who had counted on the Queen's disdain for her young husband now scrambled to realign their allegiances. Not everyone approved. During a diplomatic reception, Lord Vexian cornered Daniel in a private alcove. "You may have seduced our queen," the elder statesman growled, "but don't think that makes you worthy of the throne." Daniel smiled pleasantly while reading the fear beneath the man's bluster. "My worth isn't determined by your approval, my lord, though your daughter seemed quite convinced of my qualifications." The reference to Lady Mira made Vexian's face darken with rage, but before he could respond, Illyra's voice cut through the tension. "Is there a problem, gentlemen?" She stood in the archway, resplendent in her formal regalia. Her public mask was perfect, but Daniel felt the protective surge in her emotional signature. "No problem at all, Your Majesty," Daniel answered smoothly. "Lord Vexian was just leaving." The old noble retreated, but Daniel knew the confrontation was only beginning. The court wouldn't easily accept their queen falling for the very heir they dismissed as a primitive upstart. That night, as Illyra lay in his arms, he felt her underlying worry. "They'll try to separate us," she murmured. "Let them try." He tightened his embrace. "They don't understand what they're dealing with." She propped herself up to look at him. "Sometimes I think I don't either. You're not what you seem, Daniel Thorne. Neither are you, my queen." He kissed her softly. "That's why we work." The next few weeks saw increasing political pressure. Anonymous threats appeared in Daniel's messages. Attempts to sabotage his diplomatic initiatives grew more obvious. But each attack only brought him and Illyra closer together. Finally, during a crucial vote on military modernization, their opponents showed their hand. Lord Vexian presented evidence claiming Daniel had manipulated his way into multiple noble houses through seduction and blackmail. The court erupted in scandal, but before anyone could act, Illyra rose from her throne. "You dare question my judgment?" Her voice cut through the chaos. "You think I haven't investigated every aspect of my husband's conduct?" "Your Majesty," Vexian sputtered, His methods have brought more progress in months than your ancient houses managed in decades." She descended the dais to stand beside Daniel. "I chose to accept him not just as my consort, but as my equal. Anyone who challenges that challenges the throne itself." The public declaration of her support shifted the political battlefield instantly. Daniel felt the wave of realignment sweep through the emotional signatures of the assembled nobles. Later, in the privacy of their chambers, for she rarely slept apart from him now, Illyra traced his jawline thoughtfully. "You knew they would force my hand eventually." "I counted on it." He caught her hand, kissing her palm. "Some things need to be said publicly to be believed." She smiled, the expression softening her regal features. "You're still impossible." "But I'm yours," he replied, pulling her close. And in that moment, feeling the pure joy radiating from her usually guarded emotional signature, Daniel knew phase 2 of his plan was complete. Now came the real challenge, preparing them both for what was to come. The assassination attempt came during the Imperial Dawn celebration. Daniel had been expecting it, had, in fact, carefully orchestrated the circumstances to force his opponent's hand. He stood on the grand balcony overlooking the capital's crystal spires, Illyra radiant beside him in her ceremonial robes. His reader ability picked up the familiar emotional signatures of Lady Mira, Princess Astra, and his other carefully cultivated allies positioned throughout the crowd. The shot came from a quantum disruptor designed to bypass Imperial shields, but Daniel had already moved, pulling Illyra down as the energy blast scorched the air where they'd stood. "Guards!" Illyra's voice rang out, but Daniel caught her arm. "Wait," he said, standing calmly as chaos erupted around them. "It's time." Her eyes widened at his composure. Before she could respond, Lord Vexian burst onto the balcony with a contingent of armed nobles. "The Earth-born usurper dies today," Vexian declared, "for the purity of the Empire." Daniel smiled. "I was wondering when you'd make your move, my lord, though I must say your timing is excellent." Confusion flickered across Vexian's face as Daniel raised his voice to address the panicked crowd below. "People of the Empire, you've been deceived, not by me, but by those who would claim to protect you." He gestured, and Lady Nera emerged from the shadows, projecting holographic evidence into the air. "Lord Vexian and his conspirators have been selling military secrets to the Outer Rim pirates for decades." The crowd gasped as transaction records and coded communications filled the air, but Daniel wasn't finished. "Your daughter was quite helpful in gathering this evidence, my lord," he said pleasantly, "as were the daughters and sons of every noble house that joined your little coup attempt." Mira stepped forward, along with a dozen other court favorites. Each produced additional evidence of their parents' corruption. "You manipulated them," Vexian sputtered. "Used your unnatural abilities." "Ah, yes," Daniel's voice carried easily now. "Let's discuss those abilities, shall we? My grandfather didn't just save Emperor Razik's life by chance. He was the last known reader, able to perceive the thoughts and emotions of others, a gift passed down through our bloodline." The revelation sent shockwaves through the crowd. Illyra's emotional signature blazed with sudden understanding. "The Emperor knew what he was doing when he arranged this succession," Daniel continued. "He saw a future where the Empire would need a leader who could truly understand its people, not just their words, but their hearts." He turned to face Vexian directly. "I can feel your fear right now, my lord, not of death or imprisonment, but of exposure. Shall I tell everyone what really happened to the Emperor's younger brother 30 years ago?" The color drained from Vexian's face. One by one, Daniel systematically exposed decades of conspiracy and corruption, reading each conspirator's deepest fears and using them to unravel their network of lies. Their own emotional responses condemned them more surely than any evidence. Finally, he turned to Illyra. Her face was a mask, but her emotional landscape churned with shock, betrayal, and dawning comprehension. "My queen," he said softly, though his voice still carried. "I've read your heart from the moment we met. Your strength, your loneliness, your passionate dedication to the Empire. Everything I've done has been in service to both you and our people." "You used me," she said, but uncertainty colored her tone. "I loved you," he corrected. "I simply made sure that love served a greater purpose. Every night we spent together, every secret shared, every moment of genuine connection, it was all real. I just made sure it also protected our empire." The crowd held its breath as Illyra processed his words. Daniel opened himself fully to her, letting her see the truth of his feelings, holding nothing back. Finally, she laughed, a sound of genuine joy that startled the assembled nobles. "Of course," she said, taking his hand. "The perfect heir, not just a reader but a strategist who used even his own heart as a weapon for the greater good." She turned to address the crowd. "My people, Today we have seen the true face of corruption, but we have also seen the dawn of a new era. My husband has proven himself not just worthy of the throne, but essential to our future." The conspirators were led away as Illyra pulled Daniel into a passionate kiss that left no doubt about her choice. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Daniel focused on the pure love and admiration radiating from his wife's emotional signature. Later, in their private chambers, she traced the lines of his face thoughtfully. "You really did plan everything from the beginning," she marveled. "Every seduction, every alliance, every seeming mistake, all part of your strategy." "Not everything," he caught her hand. "I didn't plan to fall so completely in love with you. That was the one variable I couldn't control." She smiled. "Good. The Empire needs at least one thing about you to be unpredictable." Their coronation took place the next day. As Daniel and Illyra stood before their people as true co-rulers, their combined strength promising a new golden age, he reflected on how far they'd come. He could feel the hope and optimism radiating from the crowd, mixed with healthy doses of fear and respect. His network of allies turned friends stood ready to help implement the reforms their empire desperately needed. And beside him, Illyra's emotional signature sang with love and purpose. The last reader had found his place, not just as a ruler but as a partner to a queen who understood that true power came from the heart as much as the mind. Together, they would build something extraordinary. And somewhere, Daniel was sure, his grandfather was smiling. Daniel lounged on his throne, idly monitoring the emotional landscape of the morning court. A decade of rule had only sharpened his reader abilities, though these days he used them as much for amusement as statecraft. "Daddy?" A blue streak shot across the throne room, ignoring all protocol. 6-year-old Princess Aurora, already showing signs of reader abilities, launched herself into his lap. "I just read Uncle Vex's emotions, and he's thinking about sneaking extra dessert again." Former Lord Vexian, now serving as a surprisingly competent garden maintenance supervisor, turned a deeper shade of blue. "Now, sweetheart," Daniel chuckled, "what have we said about publicly announcing people's private thoughts?" "Only do it when it's really funny," she suggested innocently. From her own throne, Illyra failed to suppress a laugh. A decade together had softened her royal demeanor considerably, though she still maintained an impressively regal face during official functions. Most of the time, their firstborn, Crown Prince Alexander, stood at attention nearby, practicing his diplomatic face. At 9, he took his future duties very seriously, perhaps too seriously, considering his age. "Alex," Daniel called out, "I can feel you overthinking the Andromedian trade proposal from here. Remember what I taught you." "Sometimes the best political strategy is a good joke," Alex recited, then grinned. "Like when you resolved the Neptunian crisis by telling their ambassador's wife about his secret collection of Earth soap operas?" "Exactly." Daniel winked. "Though your mother still hasn't forgiven me for teaching you that one." "I forgave you that night, as I recall," Illyra murmured, sending him a private emotional signature that made him raise an eyebrow. Lady Mira, now happily married to the Centaurian ambassador, thanks to Daniel's matchmaking, swept into the throne room with her own young children. "Your Majesties, the school delegation is here for the annual How I Met Your Emperor storytelling." This had become a favorite palace tradition. Various court ladies would recount their roles in Daniel's master plan, each trying to outdo the other with tales of intrigue and seduction. The stories got more outrageous every year. "I still maintain," Princess Astra called from her diplomatic post, "that my contribution was most crucial. Who else would have taught him the 712 steps of the traditional Nebula wedding dance?" "Which we never actually used," Daniel pointed out. "But you looked very good practicing it," Illyra said dryly. the throne room filled with familiar faces. Lady Nyra, now Spy Master General, supervised her network of informants, most of whom were the children of noble houses, carrying on their parents' tradition of cheerfully spying for Daniel. They called themselves the Junior Readers Club, despite none of them having the ability. "Father," Alexander said suddenly, "I've been meaning to ask, did you really plan everything from the very beginning, every single detail?" Daniel looked around the throne room at his beautiful wife, their gifted children, their loyal friends, and the thriving empire they'd built together. He felt the happiness radiating from every corner, the genuine love and respect that had replaced the old fears and rivalries. "Well, son," he grinned, "let's just say I planned enough to get your mother to fall in love with me. The rest." He caught Illyra's eye, feeling her emotional signature wrap around him like a warm embrace. The rest was just good fortune and better jokes. "And strategic shirtlessness," Illyra added with a smirk. "Don't forget that part of the master plan." "Mother!" Alexander looked scandalized while Aurora giggled. "Your father did have a certain talent for being conveniently undressed when I would storm into his chambers," Illyra elaborated, enjoying both her children's reactions and Daniel's amused emotional signature. Daniel pulled his family close, basking in their combined emotional signatures: love, joy, mischief, and just a hint of healthy chaos. The empire had flourished under their joint rule, with trade and cultural exchange at all-time highs. Even their former opponents had to admit that the combination of his reader abilities and her political acumen had ushered in an unprecedented golden age. "You know what they say," he declared to the laughing court. "The family that reads together leads together." "Nobody says that, dear," Illyra replied fondly. "They do now. I'm the emperor. I can make up sayings." He turned to his children with a conspiratorial wink. "That's the real secret to ruling an empire, knowing when to be serious." "And knowing when to make everyone laugh," Aurora finished, already showing signs of her father's diplomatic touch. As his children groaned and his wife rolled her eyes affectionately, Daniel reflected that some plots worked out better than even a reader could plan. The empire had never been stronger, his family had never been happier, and somewhere in the galaxy, his grandfather was definitely laughing. Stories about power often focus on its corruption, but The Last Reader explores a different path: how understanding can transform power into something greater. Daniel's journey from Earth to the stars isn't just about political machination or romantic conquest. It's about the profound impact of truly seeing people for who they are. The ability to read emotions and desires could easily become a tool for manipulation alone. Yet Daniel chooses to use his gift not just for personal gain, but to build genuine connections and create positive change. His relationship with Illyra evolves from political necessity into true partnership precisely because he sees past her defenses to her authentic self. In the end, the story suggests that real leadership isn't about force or fear, but about understanding and connection. The empire flourishes not because its ruler can read minds, but because he chooses to use that ability to bridge divides and build trust. Love, both romantic and universal, becomes not a weakness, but a source of transformative power. Perhaps that's the real inheritance passed down through the reader bloodline, not just the ability to perceive emotions, but the wisdom to use that gift in service of something greater than oneself. In a universe of vast distances and diverse species, understanding hearts might be the most powerful ability of all. The future Daniel and Illyra build together reminds us that even in the grandest space opera, the most important revolutions happen not in the stars, but in the space between people who learn to truly see each other. And sometimes, as Daniel would surely remind us, the most serious matters are best approached with a smile.